I'm Tina Whittington. I'm the Executive Vice President of Students for Life of America, and we are the nation's largest youth pro-life organization in the country. And as a woman, as a mother, as a Virginia resident, and as a representative of our over 1,200 student groups across the country, I'm here today to urge our lawmakers to put the brakes on the Equal Rights Amendment here in Virginia. Let us not be the state that turns the clock back on women. This, by ratifying this out of date, out of sync, and frankly harmful to women amendment. The ERA is out of date. Not only have supporters failed twice with extended deadlines to get this amendment ratified by 38 states, our culture and our legislation has effectively moved past a time when an amendment like this is even needed. The ERA is out of sync with this century, where women are already protected as equals in our legislation and by the courts. We have passed legislation for equal pay, equal employment, pregnancy non-discrimination, Title IX rights for women on college campuses, and so much more. Even the Supreme Court has weighed in on women's equality in their 1971 ruling on Reed versus Reed, where the court decided that the 14th Amendment did prohibit unequal treatment on the basis of sex. This was the first U.S. Supreme Court decision to apply the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause to gender or sexual distinctions. We have an amendment that gives us equal protection. The ERA is harmful to women. This is an amendment that today would hurt the very women that supporters are saying it's going to help. If the ERA were to be ratified and enacted, gender-specific protections we now have would be ripped away because it would make illegal laws designed to benefit one gender. ERA specifically states that a person's sex could not be considered in making a legal preference. With that in mind, consider the many protections designed specifically for women, for mothers, that would be impacted and harmed, including the Equal Pay Act of 1963, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Equal Employment Opportunity Act of 1972, the Federal Minimum Wage Act of 1974, and the Pregnancy Non-Discrimination Act of 1964. In fact, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote in her book Sex Bias in the U.S. Code that the ERA will change 800 federal laws, including the elimination of Social Security benefits for wives and widows. The financial impact on women is incalculable. I think the dirty little secret that we all know that that's the push for the ERA, and they don't want to talk about this. This is the hidden thing that they don't want to bring up front. But this is about creating a constitutional foothold for abortion. Yeah. Finding a right to abortion based on Equal Rights Amendment, based on this amendment, is not about the abortion procedure. The abortion procedure isn't even mentioned. It's not mentioned. It's about being a woman's ability to live equally. And we've already seen this fleshed out in Connecticut and New Mexico that have equal rights amendments in their state. The courts there ruled that restricting funds for medically necessary abortions does not apply the same standard of medical necessity to both men and women, thus making abortion in those states not only a right, but a procedure that the state must pay for. There is a fear. The people that are here trying to push the ERA, they're afraid. They're afraid that Roe is going to be overturned, that more states are going to pass legislation to protect the preborn and support women to choose life. And the only reason to pick the ERA back up off the dusty floor of history is because of a fierce desire to protect abortion at all costs. Betty Friedan, one of the founders of the modern pro-ERA movement, summed up their position best in her letter to the International Women's Year Conference delegates. She said, "The ERA has become both symbol and substance for the whole of the modern women's movement of equality. Further, I am convinced if we lose this struggle for the ERA, we will have little hope in our own lifetime of saving our right to abortion." That is still what it is about today, because we are already equal. We are already protected under law. Courts have already given us equality. The ERA is out of date, it's out of sync, and it's harmful to women. It is not truly the Equal Rights Amendment anymore, but the Everything Related to Abortion Act. Again, I urge our legislators not to turn the clock back on women, because that's what this will do, and to not turn their back on the most vulnerable among us, the preborn. Thank you.